Hi everyone, so today I thought I would go over our IVF journey. I'm currently 20 weeks pregnant with our IVF baby and thought it was about the right time to talk about our whole experience really. If you follow me on my Instagram, you might already know about my journey, but a lot of you have requested to find out things in a little bit more detail, so here we are. It's going to be quite a lengthy video. I'm going to be talking a lot at you. So yeah, back in May we contacted a UK based provider. They were called Your IVF Journey. Now they had direct contact with our clinic out in Brno. You don't have to do it that way. You can contact clinics directly. But since it was our first time ever doing IVF and we were going abroad, especially during COVID times as well, we were a little bit skeptical, a bit uneasy, and just wanted that extra reassurance. So we did go through them. However, if we did do it again, we would just go straight through the clinic because they were amazing. So yeah, we contacted them at the end of May 2021. To say that, yeah, we've been trying for 4 years. We did fall naturally after about 2.5 years, but it ended up being a blighted ovum miscarriage. And so they were like, yeah, that's fine, you qualify, and you have to fill out a lot of information about yourself. So your age, your medical history, that sort of thing. And then they also want up-to-date blood tests, so they've got to be within like the past 3 months. My partner had to do a semen analysis, and then I also had to have a pelvic fertility scan as well. So that measured my lining, if there was any present fibroids, masses, and the size of my ovaries as well. So as you can imagine, that took quite a bit of time. I booked my scan through Ultrasound Direct, which are a fantastic private scan provider. They're all over the UK, so I'd really recommend using those. And thankfully, we did manage to get most of the blood tests done through our GP, but some blood tests they will not do. For example, measuring your AMH. So I did have to go through Medichecks to get that done. Again, that was super easy. They send the kit to your house within a couple of days. You just do some finger pricks to get the blood out, post it back, and then they send you an official letter from a doctor explaining your results. And so we forward all of that over to your IVF journey. They're basically the middleman, because then they forward it over to our clinic. And then at the end of June, we received our full treatment plan and protocol. So that's when the ball really got rolling, really. So we were told the dates that we needed to be out in Brno. So for us, we were booked in for the 20th to the 30th of August in 2021. So it was a really, really quick turnaround. If we were waiting for the NHS, we would have been waiting 48 weeks just to have an initial consultation, whereas with the clinic abroad, it was just straight away as soon as they could fit us in. They also told us the prescription details, so for the medication that I needed to take and how to order them through Fertility to You. There are quite a few different online pharmacies that you can use, but my clinic in particular used Fertility to You, and doing it through your IVF journey, we also got a little bit of a discount as well. So it wasn't quite as expensive as it is if you do it in the UK anyway. And then we were also given our treatment plan as well. So I was told to start taking the birth control pill, which sounds really crazy. You're trying to get pregnant and yet you're taking a contraceptive. That doesn't make much sense. It's so they have full control of your cycle, because they want to make sure that when you are over in the country at the clinic, that you are going to ovulate at the right time. And there's also a lot of research that has been done that actually, if you do use birth control pills, it actually prepares your body somehow for IVF. Don't really know how that all works, but I think most places do it. So I had to wait in July for my period to arrive, and I had to start taking the birth control pill on day 2 of my first full bleed. So not just light spotting, a full bleed. And then I had to take those for a certain amount of days. I think it was 16 days in total. I ended up taking them because my period did actually end up coming late, which always happens, you know, when actually you want something to start and then it doesn't. So yeah, it was late, so I should have been on it a little bit longer, but thankfully I was still within the minimum requirements because we were worried that it was going to completely mess our cycle up. Thankfully it didn't. So then after I stopped taking those, I had to then wait for my breakthrough bleed to come through, which isn't actually a proper period. It is just a bleed that has been controlled by the hormones. And then of day 2 of that bleed, I had to start taking gonal F injections. Now, gonal F is to basically stimulate your ovaries. So typically every month you release 1 egg, or very rarely you might release 2 eggs. But the idea of IVF is that you get as many eggs as possible, so they can retrieve as many as possible, so then you have a higher chance of them fertilizing and being used for a transfer. So I use gonal F, but there are lots of different ones. I think it depends on your clinic. It depends what sort of dosage you need. I didn't need a very high dosage. I only took 125 units of the gonal F, so it wasn't too much. And I had to take that from the 2nd day of my full withdrawal bleed. So I did that for 5 days. I will post in between these clips some little videos and photos of kind of the whole process, but please excuse the fact that they are in awful portrait mode that I did take for Instagram, because I didn't think that I would be doing this for YouTube. So everything was on Instagram, so I will link my Instagram, so if you want to go and have a look back over there. I did document things kind of live in time, so to speak. So yes, I took those for 5 days, and then I had to go for another private scan. So this scan again measures your lining. Your lining needs to be a certain thickness. And it also measured my follicles. Thankfully, my AMH was quite high for my age. I was 28 at the time, and my AMH level was also 28. So I think they said it was about the equivalent of a 24-year-old. So I had a decent amount of eggs, which was really fortunate. So I had 30 follicles in total, and I had lots of different sizes. I will pop the picture in after this clip for you to see. So then I was told to start taking Cetrotide. So I had to take my Gonal F in the evening. It was always around 9 p.m. and that was to stimulate the ovaries, produce as many eggs, egg growth. And then the Cetrotide stopped you from ovulating, because obviously there's so much going on in your body. You don't want to start ovulating too soon, because they need that for when you're out. If you're going abroad, they need it whilst you're over there, or if you're in the UK, they need it for when you're booked in at the clinic. So I took those for a few days. And then we were ready to go. I think it was the 18th of August that I had my scan, and then we flew out to Brno on the 20th. So obviously during all of that time, we had to book flights, book accommodation. There was big lockdowns going on at the time, so we had to book a COVID test before we went. We had to have a COVID test 2 days before we left Brno, and we also had to have a COVID test 2 days after we arrived back in the UK, which wasn't the best, but we weren't going to wait around. And we also had to fill in a passenger locator form, and we had to have several other letters saying that it's basically a medical emergency and we were allowed to go into the country, because the Czech Republic weren't letting tourists in at that time. So when we went, yeah, there wasn't many tourists about, but then that was quite nice. So yeah, we flew from Stansted directly to Brno. Now Brno is the tiniest airport I have ever seen, really, really small. Then we went to our apartment. And then on the first full day we were there, Saturday the 21st, we went to visit Reprofit, our clinic, on the Saturday in the morning. So they did another scan, and my doctor said that basically he wanted to give my follicles, give my eggs a bit more of a push. We were expecting him to say to stop the normal injections and to trigger. However, that wasn't the case. He wanted me to carry on taking Gonal F and Cetrotide a little bit longer, which was not nice. Cetrotide was not nice at all. It was a stinger. So I had to take those for 2 more days just to try and get them a little bit bigger and a bit more even. So we did that, and then I did take my trigger shot. So my trigger shot was Retrieval. So this basically triggers you to ovulate. So, and after that, you get 1 day off injections, yay. And then you go in for your egg retrieval. So this ended up being on the Wednesday instead. So we flew out on the Friday, had the scan on the Saturday. We were expecting to have the egg retrieval on the Monday, but because my eggs were playing ball, we were then 2 days delayed and didn't have the egg retrieval until Wednesday. So it is a full-on surgery. You are put under anaesthetic, you are put to sleep for it. So from midnight the night before, I wasn't allowed to eat or drink, wasn't allowed to shower. I stopped wearing perfumes and nail varnish and stuff like that prior to IVF anyway. But yes, basically you have to be just completely natural, no deodorant, nothing, because it can affect the quality of the eggs. So we went in on the Wednesday morning. We were shown to our little private room. Again, I will show you a little picture, which just had a bed in it, basically, because you're not there for very long. And then my husband was taken off straight away to go into his business to go and give his sample. So then I was left in the room all on my own. Got to say I was pretty petrified. Just wanted to get it over and done with, and especially because it was abroad. The language barrier wasn't too much of an issue, but I'm quite hard of hearing a lot of the time anyway. So sometimes I just didn't understand what they were asking of me, but it was fine. Managed to, get through it. So I had to wear like a little surgery skirt, and then just wore a little strap top, and you just lose kind of all sense of dignity when you do IVF. I had to sit on the edge of the bed, both my legs kind of up in the air, nice and open, so they could get in, basically. So yeah, they put me to sleep. The last thing I remember is counting down, and the next thing I know, that I'm being wheeled in by the people that did my surgery, and this Aaron was obviously in there waiting for me, because I'd been in there for about half an hour. It doesn't take very long. And they were all laughing, saying, "Your wife is so funny." So I have no idea what I had been doing or saying whilst I was, coming round from this anaesthetic, but I was hilarious apparently, so that's embarrassing. And so yeah, they then hauled me off the bed that I was on for the surgery, put me on the bed that I was going to stay on for the next couple of hours, and they said, "Oh, we'll come back in a moment." I think they wanted to give me time to come round a little bit. I was still a little bit out of it. So after I'd come around from the surgery, when the anaesthetic had worn off a little bit, they came to tell us that we had collected 15 eggs. Now that is a really good amount, and we were happy. However, at the same time, we were kind of disappointed because I did have 30 follicles, and with the AMH level that I have, we were expecting more, but never mind. What I've learned from this process and talking to others that have also been through it, it's about quality and not quantity. So if you are going through this process and you don't come out with as many eggs as you're expecting, whether that's 20, 10, 5, 3, try not to hang everything on the numbers, because as you will find out in a moment, I'll talk to you about my eggs and their quality and how many survived. It's definitely about quality. So yes, 15 were collected, however only 13 were viable, so we had 13 eggs basically. So I then had to just stay for a couple of hours. They just needed to make sure that I could eat something, drink something without chucking it up, and that was it really. We were just sent off. Basically go in bed rest for a bit. I was very sore down there. It wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. I recommend you do not Google the size of the needle. That is placed inside of you, because it might freak you out a little bit. But yeah, so it was then just a waiting game, and I feel like that's all this IVF process is trying to conceive processes. It's just endless waiting all the time. So even though injections had finished, thankfully for me, some people do carry on taking injections depending on the infertility, what issues they have and things. I just started taking progesterone. So I took these in the form of a pill that looked like a little torpedo, and people either choose to use them at the front or at the back. I used the front way because I figured that's where everything is. It's apparently the least pleasant. Apparently going up the back end is a little bit more pleasant and you don't get all of the mess. But I just figured that was the right way for me. So stock up on panty liners. It is very, very messy if you don't want to chuck out all of your underwear. So yeah, first day after egg retrieval, we received an update. Again, this varies from clinic to clinic. Some clinics don't like to give any updates until you go in and have the transfer. Some give 2 updates, some give 3 updates. It depends on their policy. So ours told us the next day how many eggs had fertilised. So we found out that 12 had fertilised, so only 1 hadn't made it. It was so far so good. And then we had to wait until we had a day 3 update. Now I know a lot of clinics don't do that because they don't like to tamper with the embryos. But I was literally just do a quick flash look, done. So it's not too invasive. Day 3, 10 had survived. Yeah, any eggs that have made it to day 3, you're looking good. So then it was the dreaded wait for day 5, which is also the day of the transfer. So we didn't get an update online. We just got the update when we arrived at the clinic ready to transfer. We told that 4 had made it. 1 was an XB, which is an expanding blastocyst. 1 was a B, which is a standard blastocyst. And then we had 2 CMs. So they were still cellular and hadn't quite made it to blastocyst stage. So we were able to transfer an XB, which was great. And then we found out the day after the transfer, sadly then only 1 of the other 3 had made it, but it had evolved into an XB. So we do have a frozen expanding blastocyst waiting for us, frozen, in Brno. So that was it really. We went in for the transfer. You don't have to go under anaesthetic or anything like that. It's basically like having a smear. My partner was allowed in, which was lovely. He actually did film the whole thing. It was quite emotional, really. You know, kind of seeing yourself become impregnated, becoming pupo, as we like to call it in the fertility world, pregnant until proven otherwise. I just had to lie there for 10 minutes afterwards, and then yeah, good to go. And because we were 2 days delayed, we were actually flying home that same day. We had the transfer around 10-11 a.m. And we flew home at 5 p.m. So it was very uncomfortable. Straight away I had a lot of cramping, a lot of back pain, but I ended up walking I think about 12,000 steps that day because we couldn't not. We were in the airport. We then had to drive back from Stansted to where we live. We had to go and pick up our dog, and then get back home. So thankfully I had taken some time off work. it was roughly a week to a week and a half to just rest. So during the 2-week wait, it was hard. I was very tired, extremely bloated. I forgot to mention actually that my transfer was nearly cancelled because I was at risk of OHSS, which is where your ovaries are overstimulated, and because I did have some fluid, but thankfully I managed to drink enough to get rid of the fluid, but it meant my ovaries were extremely enlarged, very uncomfortable, and it got to about day 6 and I just had a bit of a breakdown really. I couldn't cope not knowing. I was convinced it hadn't worked. I was crying into my tea that I was making, and so we decided to test on day 7 in the evening, and it couldn't have been more clear. It had worked. So yeah, that is our IVF journey in a very quick nutshell. Obviously a lot more details you can find over on my Instagram, which I will link below. If you do have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I will reply, or if there are enough I can do kind of an IVF Q&A sort of thing. But thank you for watching. I hope that was useful.